Welcome back to the deep dive. So you've mastered the art of securing your cloud environment. I mean, you've built the walls, you've provisioned the gates, and you've got all your identity controls locked down.
Right.
But, the thing is, when you're working at a huge scale, all that robust security is, well, almost meaningless if you don't have visibility.
Exactly. Or accountability or a functioning rule book that everyone actually has to follow. We're talking about operational excellence,
Yeah.
and that all comes down to governance. And the challenge isn't just having systems. It's how do you scale that across, say, dozens or even hundreds of cloud accounts without just drowning your engineers in noise?
Yeah, just constant alerts.
You need specialized automated tools for auditing, performance measurement, compliance checking, all of it.
And that is the core of our mission today. We're taking a really strategic look at the 6 essential AWS services that together form that complete governance framework. Our goal is to quickly get you up to speed on how these tools turn all that raw activity into, structured, actionable intelligence. Think of it like a suite of tools that gives you the eyes, the rule book, and a wise consultant for your whole setup.
I like that. And if you can master the interplay between these 6 tools, CloudWatch, CloudTrail, Config, Organizations, Health, and Trusted Advisor, you've really moved beyond just deploying things in the cloud. You're into true cloud architecture and management.
Okay, let's unpack this. We should start with the eyes. You know the old saying, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. We need data. Performance data, health reports, all of it.
And for that, our central utility for all that time series data for measuring performance and health is Amazon CloudWatch.
Right. CloudWatch is basically the central nervous system for your resources, the main dashboard.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's what tells you if your EC2 instances are running hot, or if a Lambda function is timing out, or if your database latency is spiking.
And the critical thing to grasp here is that CloudWatch deals in metrics. These are just numerical data points like CPU utilization, network traffic, stuff like that collected over time.
And these metrics come in automatically.
For many services, yes, they push metrics by default every 5 minutes, but you can get much more granular down to 1 second if you really need it.
Okay, let me stop you there. Because we all know metrics exist. But the real game changer is turning those numbers into something that actually drives action. I think everyone listening has suffered from alert fatigue at some point.
Oh, absolutely. Just getting spam with notifications that don't really mean anything.
Exactly.
And that's a great point. CloudWatch helps solve that by moving from just simple notifications to what we call closed-loop automation using alarms.
So you don't just set an alarm that says, hey, CPU usage hit 90%.
No. You set an alarm that, when it's triggered, automatically scales up your resources using an auto-scaling group, for example.
So it's not just reporting the problem, it's an automated response mechanism. That's the strategic value right there. It turns monitoring into really self-healing infrastructure.
Precisely. It keeps the lights on. It focuses on the system's operational state. But even the best dashboard won't tell you the whole story.
What do you mean?
Well, if your system breaks, CloudWatch tells you what happened, performance degraded, an instance went down, but it doesn't tell you who or what caused it.
Ah, that's the critical distinction. So if CloudWatch is the dashboard for the car's health,
Then AWS CloudTrail is the comprehensive CCTV camera recording every single thing the driver does inside that car.
got it. Okay, so CloudTrail is for auditability. It's the record for governance, for compliance, for security forensics.
Because it records every single API call made in your account. And we have to remember, in AWS, everything you do, launching an instance, changing a policy, anything, it's an API call.
So every action, whether it's an engineer clicking in the console, an automated service role, a script, it's all logged. This isn't just nice to have data.
No.
I mean, this is the core of security. We talked about non-repudiation in a recent deep dive, and this is it. CloudTrail provides that proof you need for serious audits, like SOC2 or IPA.
That's the advanced why, exactly. It proves accountability. Let's go back to an earlier example, a deleted database.
Okay.
If a critical production database just vanishes, CloudTrail will instantly give you the IMM user or role that did it, the specific API called deleted deep instance, the exact timestamp, and even the source IP address.
So it turns what could be a week-long panic into a 10-minute investigation.
Right. The operational challenge, though, and you should be aware of this, is that CloudTrail generates a ton of data, especially in busy accounts.
Right, so you have to manage that.
You do. A multi-region trail is a security best practice, but you have to think about cost and retention.
Yeah.
Maybe you keep 90 days of logs hot for quick queries, but you archive everything else to cheap storage for, say, 7 years to meet regulations.
Okay, so CloudTrail is the evidence locker. But once we know who did what, and CloudWatch tells us how the system reacted, we can shift gears. We can move to actively preventing these things from happening in the first place.
Exactly.
So we've covered monitoring and the audit trail.
Yeah.
Now we move from just seeing what happened to building a fence. How do we make sure everyone in a huge organization is following the rules?
We need continuous oversight of every single resource configuration, and that's where AWS Config comes in.
AWS Config, the continuous compliance checker.
It's not an annual review or the fire drill. It's always on, always assessing your configurations against rules that you define.
So think of it like this. CloudTrail logs the event that a new resource was created.
Right, and config monitors the properties of that resource after it's been created. So a common rule might be all security groups must block SSH traffic from the entire internet.
And if someone launches a security group that violates that rule, Config flags it instantly.
Immediately.
That gives you real-time visibility into what some people call governance drift,
Right.
where your configurations just slowly move away from your policies over time.
And what's really fascinating here is the automation potential. Config can do more than just flag the problem. You can set it up to automatically remediate or fix the non-compliant setting.
For instance, if an S3 bucket is launched unencrypted.
Config can trigger an action to encrypt it on the spot.
But wait, doesn't auto-remediation feel a little risky? I mean, if config is just automatically changing configurations, couldn't that break a critical application that needs that specific, albeit non-compliant setting for some reason?
That is an excellent point. It really gets at the idea of governance scope. You wouldn't just apply forceful auto-remediation everywhere.
Or
You might enforce it strictly in production, but maybe you only use config for reporting in a sandbox account. You give developers flexibility, but you still keep an eye on things. It's a trade-off.
And that trade-off gets infinitely more complex when you're managing, hundreds of accounts.
Which is standard practice today.
Yeah, which leads us directly to the power tool for that, AWS Organizations.
Organizations is often known first for consolidated billing, rolling up all those invoices into one. But its real strategic value is centralized governance.
Absolutely. Organizations lets you apply policies across whole groups of accounts from one place using what are called service control policies, or SCPs. I think we need a clear metaphor here. If an IAM policy is like a specific employee's job description, then an SCP is like the corporate constitution.
That's perfect, yes. SCPs define the hard limits. They say what's permissible across the whole organization, and it doesn't matter what IAM permissions someone has in their own account. They are the ultimate guardrails.
And the beauty of SCPs is that they're preventative.
Yeah.
So while config checks a resource after it's created and then maybe fixes it.
An SCP can prevent the creation entirely. For example, you can write an SCP that says, nobody in the development group of accounts is allowed to launch resources in region Y, which could be for data residency rules or just cost control. So connecting this to the bigger picture, using organizations and SCPs, is really how mature companies manage that complexity. It makes sure that even if an engineer messes up an IAM policy in one account, the SCP stops them from doing something really bad, like spinning up a bunch of crypto mining instances.
So it centralizes the control without giving up the security benefits of having separate accounts.
Exactly.
Okay, that covers the rule book. We have continuous compliance with config and these preventative guardrails with organizations. Now let's pivot to the services that act as the wise consultant, the tools that proactively warn you.
We can start with account awareness, and specifically AWS Health.
Okay, now when people hear AWS Service Status, they usually think of the public AWS Service Health dashboard. That global page that tells you if, say, S3 is having a bad day. We need to be clear, AWS Health is different.
Very different, yes. AWS Health gives you a personalized view. It only shows you status updates or maintenance schedules that are directly relevant to your specific accounts, your regions, and your resources.
So it filters out all the global noise.
It cuts it down to your actionable reality. So if AWS is planning to decommission some hardware that's supporting one of your EC2 instances next week, AWS Health is what sends you that personalized alert, giving you time to prepare.
It's a key part of fault tolerance then.
Absolutely. So that helps you manage external risks, the things AWS is doing. Now we can talk about the tool that helps you manage internal risks, the mistakes you or your team might have made. Our final and maybe most valuable consultant is AWS Trusted Advisor.
Trusted Advisor. It's basically a continuous, free architectural audit of your environment.
Yeah, measured against years of AWS best practices. It scans your whole setup and gives you actionable guidance across 5 core categories or pillars. These are cost optimization, performance, security, fault tolerance, and service limits.
And this isn't just, theoretical advice. It's very tangible. Let's take security, for example.
Okay.
Trusted Advisor will flag real issues, like exposed IAM access keys that haven't been rotated in 90 days, or an S3 bucket policy that grants access to everyone. That's a huge risk you can mitigate instantly.
Or take cost optimization. It doesn't just say your bill is high. It points to specific things, like identifying underutilized EC2 instances, servers running at 5% CPU or EBS volumes that aren't attached to anything, but you're still paying for them every month.
That direct monetary advice is incredibly powerful.
It is.
It's like democratizing architectural knowledge. It's like having a senior solutions architect run a checklist against your environment constantly.
And its recommendations for fault tolerance are crucial for meeting your SLAs. It'll flag things like instances running without backups or load balancers with only one healthy target.
Right. And service limits is one that people often overlook, but it's so important for uptime.
So important. Trusted Advisor warns you if you're getting close to a soft limit, like the maximum number of volumes you can have. This lets you request a limit increase before your auto-scaling group suddenly fails to launch a new instance.
So when we put all 6 of these tools together, what we really have is a robust, dynamic operational framework. It's not just a collection of services.
Not at all.
So, to recap, CloudWatch gives us the real-time metrics and self-healing alarms.
Right.
CloudTrail ensures accountability and gives us that audit trail by logging every single API call. And AWS Config is continuously enforcing our rules with the option to automatically fix things.
And tying it all together centrally is AWS Organizations, using SCPs to set those non-negotiable guardrails at the very top.
Then AWS Health gives us those personalized warnings about what AWS is doing.
And finally, AWS Trusted Advisor acts as our expert consultant, constantly auditing against best practices across those 5 pillars: cost, performance, security, fault tolerance, and service limits.
It's the complete toolkit, everything you need to achieve true operational excellence in the cloud.
Which it raises an important question for you to think about strategically. Instead of just treating Trusted Advisor as an audit tool or report you run to find problems that already exist, how might you embed its 5 pillars directly into your definition of done for all new architecture?
So you're saying treat that advice not as an audit, but as a mandatory design phase.
Exactly. A checklist you complete before the first line of infrastructure code is even written.
That's a powerful challenge, turning reactive auditing into a proactive architectural design. You now have the knowledge of the I's, the rules, and the consultant. Go explore the specific documentation for these governance tools and start putting them to work. We'll see you in the next deep dive.